My name is Kristina Mand-Lakhiani. I'm co-founder of Mindvalley, and welcome to my Honest Conversations. And for those of you who follow me, you know what Honest Conversations is going to be about. For those who don't follow, it's the conversations I've been having all this year with remarkable people, mostly in our industry of personal growth and transformation. And I often keep them super casual, and we end up talking about things which sometimes are unexpected, but generally are important. So today I have an amazing guest, a guest I've been waiting for since summer. So she's an expert in relationships, in love, actually, more than anything else. And my guest today is Arielle Ford. Welcome, Arielle.
Thank you, Kristina.
Arielle is, well, I know you as a speaker, as an author. I met you also quite a few years ago, actually, at Jack Canfield's event, where you were talking about your concept of wabi-sabi love, which is one of your books. But I also discovered that you are also pretty good in PR, in marketing, in business, and a lot of things. But we'll talk today about relationships, I think. And I just to introduce you to the guest, Arielle is an author of numerous books, 11 books on love and relationships. I think the most famous is Soulmate Secret.
It's really great to see you looking so good and looking so happy.
Thank you so much. And I was really looking forward to this conversation because, you know, I'm having a lot of interviews, and often I need to find answers in relationships because it seems that this topic is very important on people's mind. And, you know, we live in a very pragmatic world where we don't even acknowledge that we need to have a relationship. And now we're in this world of super empowerment and emancipation and whatnot, and you know, relationships to ourselves, and especially in personal growth, this whole concept of, you know, you don't need anyone for your happiness. So it's an interesting push and pull conversation I've had with a lot of people, and I know you are a really good expert at that. As I said, my dear friend turns to you and she needs to answer her questions about love. So how do you feel? How are we as a society? Are we actually open to committed relationships, or are we as a society, and I know it's maybe unfair to ask about the whole society, are pulling away a little bit and becoming a little more individualistic, a little, you know, more self-sufficient maybe? I don't know.
Well, that is a huge question. And I think I would have answered it one way on March 1st. But since March 15th, when the world pretty much went into lockdown, I would answer it another way. So I believe that human beings were meant to be in couples. Now, I know there's a whole bunch of people out there who think that polyamory is the way to go, but you know, they'll find out over time it doesn't work. But we are wired up to be with another human being and to procreate and have kids and have family. It's part of our DNA. It's part of our biology. So the whole resistance to people feeling guilt or shame over wanting a relationship is really misplaced. And one of the things that I like to do at the start of a conversation like this is define what love is. Okay, because so many people are really confused about what love is. They think that love is the state of being in love. And when you're in the state of being in love, you're on nature's greatest natural drug high. Your brain is just, you know, emanating all these things like dopamine and adrenaline and oxytocin. And it's this fantastic feel-good cocktail. But it's really not what love is. What it is the socially acceptable form of insanity. And it's nature's trick to get us to hook up and procreate. That's really what being in love is. What real adult mature love is, it's a behavior. Love is a behavior. It's a choice. It's a decision. It's a way of being. It's an action. And so you can be married to or partnered up with your soulmate, with your beloved, and there will be days when you hate them. And that is absolutely normal. And it doesn't mean that you don't love them. So really getting the distinction of what love is an important place to start, because people, you know, they fall in love and everything's great and it's all wonderful until the day that it isn't, when the drug cocktail starts to wear off, and it always wears off. Generally, it lasts 6 months to 3 years, and then it's pretty much gone. Then you're stuck with this real human being. And that's where the real work begins, learning how to love them. Now, you've heard me talk about wabi-sabi love, and we can talk about that all you want. But the thing to understand is that just because they're doing stuff you don't like, you have to ask yourself, is this a reason not to love them?
Mm.
Okay,
Well,
now, but that doesn't include bad behavior, addiction, or abuse. Okay, if any of those things are going on, you need professional intervention. But for the most part, you're going to do things that piss them off. And for sure, they're going to do things that drive you crazy. And it doesn't mean that you don't love them.
You know what? Before we actually went on a call, and all my thoughts started running crazy. I wanted to ask you one thing, and do you believe in love for life in contemporary world? And I'm not asking that because I don't believe. I just want to see.
Okay, so let's start with what my definition of a soulmate is. Okay,
Yes.
so I believe a soulmate is first and foremost somebody you can completely be yourself with, somebody with whom you share unconditional love. And when you look into their eyes, you have the feeling of being home. And if you accept that definition, then the truth is everybody has lots of soulmates. Your parents, your kids, your siblings, your best friends, your coworkers, your cats, your dogs. So there's no shortage of love in the world, and there's no shortage of soulmates. And when we want to have a romantic soulmate, then one of the fastest ways to do that is by having a daily gratitude practice, giving thanks for the abundance of love you already have. Now, to get to your question is, some soulmate relationships end in divorce. And it doesn't mean that it wasn't a soulmate connection. What it means is that the relationship had an expiration date, and you can have more soulmates. So there's no limit to the soulmates that you have. And just because there's a divorce doesn't mean it wasn't a soulmate relationship.
Yes, thanks for that answer. So what's the future of relationships? I'll just give a little context why I'm asking that. And again, that might be a little unfair question. Some people say that also you mentioned the hormones and the socially acceptable form of insanity, which wears off, and eventually people come down to earth and start seeing each other for what they are. And I would say that it's quite natural for any couple that at some point you might feel attracted to someone else. So what's the future of our relationships? Are we going to, do we need to become more honest with each other and actually be okay with this kind of things and talk about that? Are we going to become a little more, I do not know if it's the correct word to say selfish, and every time we lose the socially acceptable form of insanity, we give up the soulmate connection as well? What do you think? What's the humanity heading for?
Okay, so it's not one answer for everybody.
Yes.
So it depends on what the agreement is. Yeah. Okay, so if you're somebody who really values monogamy, right, and that's the agreement the two of you have, then yes, everybody gets attracted to other people, but a mature adult doesn't act on it. And you could even say to your partner, oh God, I think he's really hot, or I think she's really hot. But they have you in this, container of trust that nobody's going to act out. At the same time, you could also have the agreement, yes, we're going to take sacred vows, we're going to be married, and we're going to allow each other what in this country we would call a hall pass, yes, if you wanted to occasionally have a fling, but a fling is different from having an emotional connection and having an affair with secrecy with somebody else. So it's a very individual sort of thing. And you kind of need to know that going in, like, are you for some men, there's a hormone called vasopressin. And I can't remember exactly if some men have too much or not enough, but whatever it is, it's sort of the source of some men not being able to keep it in their pants. And I always talk to scientists saying, too bad you can't come up with a little saliva test when you're dating somebody to find out what kind of guy you have, because a mature man can say, yes, so-and-so's really hot. It'd be so much fun to have sex with her. And I'm in an 18-year marriage. I've taken vows and I may have a fantasy, but I'm not going to act on it. And the one thing that science has shown, some of the research, is that kids do much better on every level in life if they're living under the same roof with their parents, right? And so if mom and dad are each sneaking out and doing other things, and there's underlying jealousy or tension, that's going to impact them. So it's a really big conversation, and probably the better person to have that conversation with is Esther Perel, because that is her area of expertise. But this is just from, my observations of, many decades on the planet. And I've interviewed, a lot of the love and relationship experts on the planet.
I'm just wondering if our relationships are changing their patterns and changing the way we are actually interacting with each other, partially because we are maybe more tolerant of each other, of other people's quirks and weirdnesses. So we don't get as shocked when somebody chooses another form of relationship, and partially because of this whole push that you have to be self-sufficient, and that's why I'm trying to probe into that, because I haven't found the answer, obviously, for myself. I don't know what's the future of relationships for the humankind.
Well, you only need to know what's right for you. What is your soul most calling for? Because all human beings, their number one biggest need, of course, besides food, air, and water, is safety and security. So especially if you've got children, safety is a really big issue, right? So these are things you have to just choose for yourself. People have always cheated. That's not going to change. And in some cultures, it's actually okay. In France, everybody just sort of turns the other way and they don't take it seriously, from what I understand. In other countries, it's a big deal, and it seems like you're just going to need to choose for yourself. What do I want? How do I want to spend the rest of my life in relationship? Do I want to get married again, or don't I want to get married? Do I just want to live with somebody, or do I want to be in a committed monogamous relationship with separate houses? All of that's totally cool to do, but it helps if you have clarity about what you most want.
So when I envision separated, then even the divorce, we seem to have pretty much only one scenario for that. There is love, there's divorce, and then people are supposed to go apart. So it seems to me that when it comes to relationships, we have very few scenarios to choose from, very few examples to emulate, and almost anything which, if we don't like the way it's done in the contemporary world, you have to blindly improvise a new way of relationships. Like we are improvising on our relationships with Vision right now of post-marriage, but still as parents, still moving the countries together. So do you have any suggestion? Is there any discussion in this society going on anywhere at all where people could
I think the whole co-parenting thing is a very big conversation. And when my sister got divorced and they had a 2-year-old, they sat down early on, and she had a career. She was an author, speaker, expert that required a lot of traveling. And her husband was a doctor, an internist here in San Diego. So they sat down and decided they wanted to be really good friends and great co-parents. And her ex-husband said, since my schedule's more stable, I will accommodate your schedule so you can go out and travel the world and teach, and we'll share custody 50-50. We'll share his expenses 50-50. And, they became very close. Their son's now 26. He turned into a great kid, but they prioritized the children, what was going to be best for the children. And so I think there are ways, yes, there are divorces where it's the war of the roses and people hate each other and it's horrible and there's a lot of lawyers involved. That happens. And then there's also the possibility of, like, for whatever reason, you grew apart, one wants to live in one country, one wants to live in another country, one of them has a new love somewhere. It doesn't matter. If you make the children the priority in the co-parenting, you can design it to what works best.
I have to now talk about something which probably is relevant to a lot of people, and that's the conversation I wanted to have with you. How to make it work through everything, because that's your area of expertise as well. And I know a lot of couples have had really hard times now because of what's going on in the world. Some of them are having hard times because they are together, and others because they are not together. So is there any are there any rules, like if you've survived quarantine and lockdown with a person you've lived for a long time and you've discovered that it's unbearable, how do you go through that? And also, then maybe if we have time we could talk about how to survive the separation.
Wow. I have one of my brothers is a divorce attorney, and he said that his business is through the roof right now, because people are discovering, all the little problems that they didn't pay attention to because they were distracted with 2 careers and people outside the house and kids. Everything became hotter and crazier under quarantine, So in this day and age, I think what you have to do is, if it's unbearable and you've tried counseling and it doesn't work, then try to separate as friends, because the truth is, as they already know in Malaysia, we will go into lockdown again, and again, this is not going to be over in 90 days. It's maybe a whole year before they get this thing under control. So to the single people, I always ask them, well, maybe the qualities you want to look for in somebody is, who do you want to be in lockdown with? What are the values? And they're probably different than what you wanted if you were single looking in January or February last year. You were looking for one thing. Now you have a whole new, context for what's important to you. Like for me, when I think about it, I would have a really hard time being with somebody who has extreme OCD and doesn't know how to manage themselves, doesn't know how to self-soothe. That's in this, maybe prior to this, they managed it because they were working out 2 or 3 hours a day and they had a million outside activities so they could work off their what I call mishigash, they could work. But if you're stuck in a house and it's winter and they can't go out and they're, utsy and they don't know what to do with themselves, that would drive me crazy, right? At this point, if I were single and looking, somebody who's a good cook would be really important to me. Okay. Now, the good thing about quarantine was I lost 20 pounds because I'm not a good cook and food has become so disinteresting to me. And before, I cooked for creativity because it was fun. But when it becomes a requirement, all the fun is gone. So you have to really look and see. So if you're living with your spouse and it wasn't perfect before quarantine and now all the flaws are revealed and you're trying to work it out and it's not workable, then set each other free. There's no shortage of single people in the world. There are 7.5 billion people alive on the planet. Half of them are single. Okay, there's no shortage of love. And actually dating in the time of COVID.
I had to ask that too, because
so here's the truth about dating in the time of COVID.
Yes.
There's never been a better time on planet Earth to manifest your soulmate than right now. And I know that sounds crazy and I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually true for a couple of reasons. Video dating has become the norm. It's the only thing that's really available. And you can ask questions on a first and second video chat that would never be appropriate at a Starbucks. So you can measure somebody's emotional IQ and you can vet them and sort them faster than you could previously, And so if you're somebody who really believes in following the rules and wearing a mask, and let's say you're a multi-generational household, so it's really important that you don't expose grandma to the virus, and or there's a child in the house with asthma, there's reasons. You want to find out on that first video chat if they're an anti-masker. If they're an anti-masker, they're just a no-go for you, right? Because you have priorities. You can't get your kid sick or your grandma sick or whatever that is. At least in our country, political views are really important. depending on, if you're pro-Biden or pro-Trump. If you're somebody who believes in democracy and you're pro-Biden, there's just no way you can be happy with a Trump lover. It's just not possible right now because it's so polarized and it's so different. So there are really important things you can discover video chatting that you couldn't before. Now, I have one friend who's 72 years old and started video dating with a man she met on Match.com. And they are now happily living together. She said they're having the greatest sex of her life ever because they video chatted for 90 days. And then they started meeting for walks with masks on. Then they both got tested for STDs and COVID. and after quarantining completely. And then they moved in together and they couldn't be happier, and they were able to really go deep on a deep connection about what's important to them and how they want their life to be because of COVID. So it's, I know there's a lot of singles out there going, oh, this really sucks and I can't go out and meet anybody. That's true, but it doesn't mean you can't meet somebody.
Well, I'm a little weird in that aspect. I actually don't like any dating sites and platforms. So for me, real life meeting is important. So I guess for people like me, it's the time of waiting. But how about those couples who started dating before maybe quarantine, and they, nowadays it's normal that some people live in different countries, but they do date. Is there anything you can suggest for their relationship to actually survive and maybe even thrive, despite the fact that travel is so complicated and limited?
Because they're in different countries?
Yes, for example, yeah. Or for whatever other, maybe US is so big, maybe in US you can't travel coast to coast because of, plane travel being complicated.
Yeah, well, actually, I know one couple that's their exact scenario. So she lives in Los Angeles and he lives in Denver, and it's a 16-hour drive. And he's been making that drive once every 3 weeks since lockdown. And they just got engaged. They've never been happier. In fact, she was posting on Facebook the other day that for the first time he flew to see her because it's a little safer now. And they're planning their wedding. So, it's just about if the connection's there, and which you can tell on video chatting, you get all the nonverbal cues, you get to go deep with somebody. You can't go out to a restaurant. No, you can't go dancing, but you could have a house dance party. You could be creative, that's all there is to do right now. These are circumstances that we don't know how much longer it's going to last. There's no one alive on the planet right now that has an answer.
But would you say that this peculiar weird situation has actually brought up a lot of things we maybe were a little oblivious about our relationships? Because I've also heard of couples who finally decided to tie the knot because of the complications.
Yeah.
And
I've been to a couple of Zoom weddings. Yeah, absolutely. What this has done for all of us is made us go deep and look at what are our priorities. Okay, what's the most important parts of life? What do we most desire in life? Because life could be really short now. Even though there's people saying, oh, the death rate's not that bad, it's only 1.8% or whatever. The truth is dead is dead, right? So how much longer do we have? So I think, for a lot of people, for everybody, it's been anxiety ridden. I haven't come across anybody who said, oh yeah, this is the greatest thing that ever happened. So it's been a wake up call for all of us. And now that we're 7 or 8 months into this wake up call, you have to look and see, what are my priorities? What do I want the rest of my life to look like? Knowing that lockdown's coming again, who do I want to share my space with? Right. And so there's different questions to be asked, different things to discover. If you're somebody who loves Netflix, like my husband and I love Netflix, and at least once a day we'll watch a movie or part of a series, and it's just a shared entertainment activity. You don't necessarily want to be with one of these people. Oh, I never watch TV. I don't even own a TV. Because you can't go dancing. You can't go to a concert. You can't go to a play. You can't go bowling. Right? So,
I love this question. I think lockdown or not, whatever the world is bringing next, but I'm definitely going to ask myself whenever I start dating someone, do I want to be in a lockdown with you? Uh, I
right.
want I want to move in that direction. So maybe because it's my conversation, so I get to ask the things that are important to me. So how do you find your soulmate? Let's say you've made a few tries when you were a little younger. Now I'm 40, so I'm supposedly more mature and a little more grounded. Do you have do you have any course or steps to do, 1, 2, 3 rules to follow
Well,
to
that's
find a soulmate?
my book, The Soulmate Secret, Manifest the Love of Your Life with the Law of Attraction, has all the steps in it of what I
Mhm.
did to manifest my soulmate. Now that book came out many, many years ago, so it doesn't have the, how to date online. So I wrote a free ebook. It's at my website. It's at soulmatesecret.com. If you go to soulmatesecret.com, it'll pop up and you can download it for free. So the steps are, the first step is the most important, and that's clarity. Having absolute clarity on the type of person you want as your soulmate life partner. Because there's lots of possibilities. Like, what are the qualities that are most important to you? Do you need somebody who's really a giver? Somebody who's really compassionate, who's going to be your best friend, your lover, your safe place to land. Like for years when I was younger, I really wanted somebody who was a captain of the universe type. I
Mm.
wanted somebody who was more ambitious than me. And believe me, I was very ambitious and very successful with the businesses that I had. But what I discovered was that men that are captain of the universe types do not make for good boyfriends or husbands because they have no time or energy to give to somebody who wants that. And what I had learned about myself was that I really wanted to be the center of somebody's universe. I wanted somebody who was really an expert at love and affection and appreciation and attention. And so I manifested a man who was a recovered captain of the universe. And I am the center of his universe for the last 23 years. So first having clarity, like what is it your soul's most calling for? What are those heart traits and qualities? You can't manifest without knowing that, because imagine, let's say you walked into Starbucks, you just walked in, you said to the guy or the girl, I'm thirsty. Well, 3 minutes later, they're going to hand you something and you may or you may not like it. But if you walk into Starbucks and you say, I'd like a tall, half decaf mocha latte with extra whipped cream and 2 Splendas, right? In 3 minutes, you're going to be handed your perfect cup of coffee. So the question is, are you going to place an order with the universe that's I'm thirsty, or are you going to be specific? I want a man or I want a woman, right? Whichever, or I'm open, I'll have a man or a woman, but I want somebody who's, very smart and funny and compassionate and handy around the house and also can cook a few meals and wants to live in Estonia. They don't have to be living there now, just they're willing to live in Estonia,
Mm.
Like when I was doing this, I knew that I never wanted to leave San Diego. So my
Mm.
request was somebody who already lives here within 50 miles or is willing to move. And when
Mm.
I met my soulmate, he was living in Portland, Oregon, which is a 2.5 hour plane ride.
Mm.
I can't tell you how fast he moved to San Diego. Like I turned around one day and said, like, when did you get here? Just, because that was my clear intention. I wanted somebody who was open, willing, and available for a long-term committed monogamous marriage. And I was
Mm.
very specific. Now,
Mm.
you may not want marriage. You may just want long-term, open relationship, separate houses, will love my kids. You
Mm.
get to design it, but you have to know what you're designing.
Can
So,
I, before we go to the next steps, can I ask one tricky question? Again,
good.
I'm not sure if it's fair. Uh, and I'm sure quite a lot of people might be in that situation where they are looking for a soulmate. They have the clarity of what they want, and then they discover that the person they actually love is completely different from what they really want. So what do you
Right,
do?
right. Yes, that happens all the time. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about the qualities of a good marriage. So in a good marriage, you need commitment, connection, communication, chemistry, although chemistry is not the most important, it's actually the least important. The most important is a shared vision for the future. Those are the 5 qualities that will make up a good long-term relationship or marriage. So you could meet somebody and the chemistry is really hot. But remember, this is nature's trick. This is a drug high. So it feels so good. But ultimately, they may not have the capacity to share the life that you want to have. So you have to remember, it's like, have you ever gone on a diet, Kristina, where you wanted to lose some weight?
Not for losing weight, but I've been on like detox type of diets.
Okay, right. All right. So when you're on a detox diet and Vina comes to visit you and she brings you that big box of Z chocolates, right? Now, you can either stay on your detox diet or you can open the box and totally pig out and have a delicious time. But you get to choose. So it's like that when you meet somebody, you know, like it's like the big box of chocolates and you know it's not good for you. And you know it's out of integrity for you to eat that chocolate when you're doing a liver detox or whatever it is you're doing. And so you, as a mature adult, you have to make some hard choices. You know, like I've had times in my life where I've gone on a diet and then this happened to me at a meeting I was at one day, and I was really trying to cut back on carbs because the doctor said I was pre-diabetic. So I had to really pay attention to what I was eating. And Lisa Nichols, of all people, walked up to me and said, "Hey, would you like my chocolate chip cookie?" I ate that thing so fast because that's my favorite food in the world. So God was testing me, you know, so that I couldn't have any other carbs for the rest of the day. So that's, you know, that's how I answer that question. You have to, you know, if you're really committed, you know, if you're telling the universe, yes, I absolutely am ready for my life, my soulmate life partner. So lots of people may feel like soulmates, but my soulmate life partner, this is somebody who has the capacity to have a shared vision for the future with you, that can communicate, that you have a connection with, that you can learn good communication skills with, then you might get tempted. That happened to me many times.
That's what I actually wanted to ask, because I might have had a very easy journey into relationships before my first marriage. But I always have a feeling that, you know, why don't you just go out on dates and see and enjoy, and then, but the problem is that you might end up having a relationship with someone who is not exactly your perfect picture. So do you think you should sit and wait for that right person, or you should still give it a try to people, because sometimes you need some time before you find out what the person is.
The only way you're going to find out if somebody's the right person is by dating.
Yeah.
Okay. And the mistake that a lot of single
we go on a tasting trip.
Yes. And you can't decide. It's a little bit trickier because you could taste something and just instantly say, "Oh, yum, that's great." But it's a little different because women fall in love in between their ears. And so I have interviewed lots and lots of longtime soulmate couples. And I've always asked the women, when did you know he was the one? And they never knew on the first or the second or the third date. Generally, they don't even feel a lot of attraction till the 5th date, because we have to get to know somebody. Now with men, it's different. Men are super visual. And I've met a lot of men that knew instantly. I turned, I saw her, I knew. That's different for men. But for women, you have to give them a chance. So you can't just say, "Oh, well, I'm very spiritual and I'm very intuitive and I'll just know." If you live out of that paradigm, you will be throwing away so many potential partners because you haven't given them a chance.
So thank you for giving me this permission. I'm going to start my tasting menu. No, but jokes aside, so what's next after you find the clarity? Obviously,
okay. So then you want to come up with your must-haves and your deal breakers. Okay. So for me, my must-haves were it was somebody who was open, willing, and available for a long-term committed marriage. That was a big must-have. Somebody who leads a healthy lifestyle. Okay. And I don't define what's healthy for them. But for me, it had to be somebody who was not a smoker, not a drug user, somebody who had some form of exercise and ate healthy for them. Not necessarily how I would eat, but healthy for them. Right. I also had to have English as a first language. And the reason for this is I grew up in Miami, where the official language is Spanglish. And
Oh.
as you know, as a multilingual person, words have different meanings in different languages. And for me as a writer, words are everything. I like precision when it comes to communication. So I would go out with guys who were maybe born in Cuba or Venezuela and did speak really good English. I had no problem understanding them, but the word usage was just enough that there were communication breakdowns frequently that drove me crazy. So English as a first language was a must-have for me. The other must-have I had, well, there were two others. One was that he had to have a great relationship with his mother. Because I had noticed, especially with my captain of the universe types, they didn't have good relationships with their mother and they didn't really respect women. And then my last one was he had to be able to walk unassisted. And the reason for that was because I take a walk every day, sometimes 2 walks. Walking is a joy for me. And I wanted to be walking at least some of the time with my soulmate. So that was a must-have, had to be able to walk unassisted, you know. So you figure out what your must-haves are, and then you figure out what your deal breakers are. You know, like for me, one of my deal breakers was a cheater. There was no, I'd been with cheaters, but I was never going to be with a cheater again. I didn't want to be with a cheater. I didn't want to be with somebody who, you know, like I said, like has OCD issues. You know, for me, it makes me nervous when like my brother-in-law has this thing when he crosses his leg, one leg's going like this all the time. And when his leg's going like that all the time, I actually get nauseous. Like I can see in my peripheral vision. It's really bad on airplanes if I'm sitting with somebody who's doing that. So those were just some of my deal breakers. I know they sound a little silly, but they're important to me. So you have to figure out your must-haves and your deal breakers. You know, then you want to write them down. And then you want to burn this list. Keep a copy of it, but burn a copy of the list on a moon cycle that's good for you. So I like the new moon. I always like to do a ritual on the new moon where I would thank the universe for bringing me my perfect right partner, not a perfect partner, my perfect right partner. And I would read over my list. I'd say a prayer of gratitude. I would burn the list and I would scatter the ashes in a body of water, whether it's the ocean or a river or creek or whatever. And if there's no water, then I would just burn the ashes and I put them in a garden. So that's the beginning.
I actually like rituals, but why do you have the ritual of burning and scattering the ashes? Is there like a meaning?
Yes, because it's a release. You're saying, you know, you're saying I'm giving it up to the universe. I'm surrendering. I'm trusting and knowing that what I've asked for is already mine. Okay, so it's a trust thing. So it's just like if you were planting a garden, let's say you'd go out and you'd go into the soil and you'd make some room and you'd put the seeds in and you put a little fertilizer in, you put a little water in, right? But you wouldn't go out there in 3 days with a flashlight at 3 a.m. looking at the seeds going, grow faster, right? Because you trust Mother Nature to do her job. So that's what the releasing is about, that you're trusting the universe, that on that energetic frequency, your wish has been granted. Now, at the same time, you have to take action. Like in the law of attraction is the word action, which means you don't sit home alone behind closed doors watching reality TV, expecting FedEx to ring the doorbell and deliver your soulmate, right? You need to be visible. Now, you don't want an online date. Although I could have a whole long conversation with you about how to do it in a way that works, because that's why a lot of people say, I tried it, it didn't work for me. Of course you tried it.
I'll tell you worse. I haven't even tried.
Yes, and bad things. This is what I can promise you. Yes, there are trolls, there are catfishers, there are people that are going to ghost you. Bad things are going to happen when you online date. and you will also meet your soulmate. Okay. So just like you could go to a restaurant and have a bad meal, that, right? We know that's a risk and it has happened to all of us, but you didn't stop eating because you had a bad meal. So there are ways, and that's why I give away this free online dating guide. When you know how to do it correctly, it actually works. So you need to become visible.
Yeah, I should check it out. Maybe if you send me the link to that when I post this interview.
It's available. Just go to soulmatesecret.com and there's a pop-up. You can't miss it. It's like right in your face. So you can download it. It's totally free. And there's nothing that comes after that. I don't have a funnel. I got nothing to sell. Okay. So yeah, so then once you release it, then you have to start living as if. So when you're living as if, your behavior matches your belief. If your belief is now that, yes, my soulmate is out there and is on his or her way to me, then what would you be doing differently? You know, would you be walking your dog looking like something the cat dragged in, or would you actually brush your hair, put on some lipstick, and then walk the dog? Right? Would you, what you could do is maybe buy greeting cards. I love you just because cards, happy anniversary cards, happy birthday cards, happy Valentine's Day cards, and put them all in a drawer, knowing that someday you're going to give your beloved these cards. All of these are behaviors that are showing the universe, yes, I know and trust that what I've asked for is already mine. So there's in the Soulmate Secret, there's like all of the steps to doing that, and it's fun and it's easy. And we probably don't have time to go through the whole thing because it's actually a weekend workshop, which I'm not doing at the moment. The other thing that I want to tell you is that I want to explain the quantum science of meeting your soulmate. Okay. So in quantum science, we know a couple of things. One of the things we know is that there is no time. There's no past. There's no future. There's just this now moment. The other thing we know from quantum science is that we all exist in a shared field. And in this field, we are already connected to everything and everybody. So in this now moment, in the field, you are already connected to your soulmate. And one of the ways that you can meet him or her is to do a process that I call the golden cord feelingization. And just very quickly, a feelingization is a word I made up and trademarked years and years ago when I discovered that visualizations don't work. And here's why. So a visualization is a pretty picture in your mind. So let's say you want a brand new forest green convertible BMW, and you see yourself driving down the freeway, your hair is blowing in the wind, you can feel the wood steering wheel, you can smell the leather seats, and you're driving this visualization BMW. At the same time, your emotional state is saying, I can't afford it, I don't deserve it, I'm never going to get it, which wipes out all your pretty pictures. You have no possibility now of getting this BMW because you don't believe that you can have it. In a feelingization, what I do is I take you on a guided process from your head to your heart, and we drop into a state that our friends at Heart Math call heart coherence. We get into a state where we physically experience and feel love or gratitude or appreciation. And once we're in this state of heart coherence, where our vibrational frequency of love is expanding out about us 12 feet, even further than it was before, then we drop in of what it will feel like when we are with our beloved. What are those feelings? And we actually have that experience. So in this golden cord feelingization, I take you on this journey to go and meet your soulmate right now. You can all do this today. I give this thing away for free. It's at my website, soulmatesecret.com. There's a tab called free stuff. Okay, easy to remember, free stuff. Go to free stuff. It'll drop down to feelingizations. Find the golden cord feelingization, and you can meet your soulmate today. And then that's how you start the conversation. You don't know what they look like, where they live, what their name is. None of that's important. On the love frequency level, you can begin the relationship today. And then I suggest that you take time every day to strengthen that connection, to begin talking to them, knowing and trusting that at the right time in divine timing, you will meet here on the 3D plane.
Mm. Thanks. It's such a beautiful concept. I want to ask one thing, because you mentioned that while you were describing visualization, where we kind of do the work, but this little, in Russian they have this saying, the worm of doubt is eating away.
Yes.
So what happens if you do all the steps and you try to manifest, and then let's say a few months pass, or half a year or a year passes, and you're still not there? Because
yes. So you will have doubt, and you will be frustrated.
Yes.
Might get majorly pissed off, and that's normal, because we want when we want it, right? And the thing to do is manage that. So when the doubt comes up, oh, I must be too old, too fat, too skinny, all the good ones are taken, I live in the wrong city, it isn't meant to be.
The worst one is like, I have to rush, I have to do it now, because the time is ticking.
Yeah, whatever that is for you, you have to do what our friend Wayne Dyer always said. Don't believe every thought that you have. Okay, it's just not true. So if you have the doubt, whatever the story is about the doubt, oh, it's just not happening, or it should have happened by now, give yourself a few minutes. Like, try to make yourself as miserable as possible is what I suggest. Like, set your timer for 3 minutes. And for 3 minutes, I want you to tell yourself the most horrific, ugly, horrible, negative stories. Yes, it's true. I'm the ugliest woman that ever lived. Nobody could ever love me. I'm mean and nasty. And it's, there's no way I'm lovable. It's never going to happen. Like, go there. And I want you to go there as best you can. Like, really make it ugly. And whatever you do not have a positive thought. And if you do this, I promise you can't do it for 3 minutes, because you're going to start laughing, because your right mind is going to kick in and start resisting, saying, no, that's not true. I'm not the ugliest, meanest, most horrible person that ever lived. Right? So once you can let it off, like it's like a pressure cooker, you got to let the steam off. Okay, then what you do is you go and stand in front of a mirror and look yourself in the eyes and start filling yourself with things that are true. I am lovable. Mom loves me. Dad loves me. My kids love me. Dina loves me. The dog loves me. And just start filling yourself up with, not only am I really kind and loving and caring and worthy of love, I love me, and my beloved's out there and he's looking for me too. Right? And then when you're done filling yourself up, blow yourself a kiss.
Thank you for these beautiful rituals and techniques to work on that. For those who are live at this call, and this is a new format for me again, because I used to record them one-on-one with my guests. Thank you for all your comments. I'm not reading them very carefully because I'm listening actually to my guests. Otherwise, we can't have a conversation. It's going to be, reading out the questions from the list, which I don't like. But since I have this function here, there are questions here that I can ask. I'm going to look with one eye and see if there is anything while we have still 5 minutes. Somebody asked, how has online dating affected true soulmate relationships? Another question, what's your view on a relationship between one who is monogamous and one who is polyamorous? Wow, interesting. Is it normal if someone is just fine being alone and doesn't need a relationship?
Okay,
do you have
that's 3 questions right there, and I have a bad
No, just pick one. We don't have time for all, so just pick one.
So let's talk about so monogamy and polyamorous. If you want to be monogamous and you're okay with your partner being polyamorous, then that's the choice you get to make. If you're not okay with it, then you need to find somebody who wants to be monogamous. As for online dating and soulmate relationships, I wouldn't be in business if it didn't work. I can't tell you the thousands of stories I've heard from people in 40 countries that are meeting and marrying online. Even some people we know, like, do you know who JJ Virgin is? She's the big nutrition star. JJ met her husband, Tim, on Match.com. And she was in her 50s when that happened. Okay, so there's no shortage of love. Online dating is just a tool that makes it easier. Just like, we can go onto Amazon and order anything we want, or we could get in our car and we could schlep to the mall and we could spend hours looking through the racks, hoping to find the right thing. And then we may or may not get COVID. Right. So like, it's your choice. It's the online dating is the greatest partner shopping experience possible. And you have total control and safety in doing it. So why wouldn't you give it a shot?
Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful interview, for being so relatable and so easy. And sometimes I'm afraid of being scolded for my silly questions. So
they're not silly though. You're asking questions that people want to know. So you get to be the every woman for everybody who's tuning into us.
Yes, thank you for that, and for your beautiful, warm energy. You made me feel better just by talking to you, and I'm going to definitely do some of the practices you suggested. Definitely the feelingization. Feelingization practice, hopefully we'll get to meet again soon and maybe have some conversation in real life. I know that right now the world is so unpredictable. And I wanted to traditionally ask everybody who was live with us and those who are going to watch it in recording to do that too. You can leave a heart either in the comments or wherever it's going to be published in the comments there, just for your generosity, for finding time for us, and for being so warm, so wise, and sharing all your experience and wisdom with us. Thank you so much for that.